Ever notice how sometimes, even when tensions are really high globally, the big wars just don't seem to break out? It's usually not just luck.
No, definitely not. There's often this incredibly complex dance, happening behind the scenes, usually orchestrated by some real master strategists.
Absolutely. And today we're doing a deep dive into one of history's most, well, intricate and influential examples of exactly that. Otto von Bismarck's really elaborate system of alliances in Europe. We're talking roughly 1871 to 1890.
Yeah, and this wasn't just standard diplomacy. It was like a grand strategic tapestry, you could say. It dramatically reshaped the continent and, quite remarkably, kept the major powers from going to war for nearly 2 decades.
But, and this is the fascinating part we'll get into, it also, maybe unintentionally, laid some subtle groundwork for, well, much bigger conflicts down the road.
Our insights for this discussion, they come from a really detailed look at Bismarck's Grand European Alliance system. It really helps break down just how complex this whole period was.
Right. So our mission today is to try and cut through all that detail, help you really understand this web of treaties, Bismarck's, undeniable genius, and crucially, how his actions ended up having these really long-lasting consequences for peace, yes, but eventually also for war.
Think of it as your guide to grasping how one man's diplomatic chess game really did reshape Europe.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Picture Europe right after 1871. Germany's just unified. There's this brand new, powerful nation smack bang in the middle of the continent. The map looks totally different.
Yeah, a major shift.
So Bismarck, the guy who basically built this new Germany, he knew getting it unified was one thing, but keeping it secure, that was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
What was his immediate, number one priority?
Well, what's really fascinating here is Bismarck's whole approach. He wasn't really looking to grab more land or even just build alliances for some future fight. His system was almost obsessive. It was this sophisticated web designed specifically to stop Germany from being surrounded by enemies.
Surrounded, okay.
Exactly. And his biggest worry, the sources really emphasize this, was France. France was, understandably, still furious about losing Alsace-Lorraine in the Franco-Prussian War just before, and, looking for payback.
Right, the revenge factor. So with that threat in mind, what were the sort of fundamental goals guiding his every move? Our source material lays out his main objectives really clearly. I'm actually going to read them out, and then maybe we can break down what each one meant in practice.
Sounds good.
Okay. Objective 1, to isolate France diplomatically, preventing it from gaining allies who might support a war of revenge for the loss of Alsace-Lorraine.
Yeah, and this wasn't just like being mean to France. It shows Bismarck's cold, hard pragmatism. He knew Germany's new power could easily become its biggest weakness if France felt cornered and found strong allies. Think of it like a chess game. You're not just trying to capture your opponent's pieces, you're constantly maneuvering to stop them teaming up with other strong pieces, especially in a way that could hit you from 2 sides at once.
Makes sense. Okay, and his next objective, maybe a bit surprising given his Iron Chancellor image.
Yeah.
Objective 2, to maintain peace in Europe by balancing the interests of Austria-Hungary, Russia, and other powers.
This is so crucial. Bismarck wasn't trying to expand Germany further. His main goal was actually stability. He wanted Germany to be seen as what the source calls a satiated power.
Satiated, like full.
Exactly. A nation that had achieved its goals, got what it wanted, and wasn't looking for more trouble. It's kind of like, imagine someone just finished building their dream house. They're not suddenly looking to buy the whole street. They just want peace and quiet to enjoy their new place securely.
Okay, I get that. And that desire for stability, it leads straight into objective number 3.
Right.
Objective 3, to avoid a 2-front war by ensuring Germany was always part of an alliance of 3 against 2.
A 2-front war. I mean, it's pretty much what it sounds like. Germany's stuck fighting on both its eastern border, probably against Russia, and its western border against France at the same time, splitting its forces.
That sounds like a nightmare scenario.
So it was Bismarck's ultimate nightmare, yeah. And this objective raises the big question. How on earth do you keep powerful neighbors like Russia and Austria-Hungary, who, let's be honest, had major rivalries, especially in the Balkans? How do you keep them both on your side, or at least neutral, simultaneously?
That's the million-dollar question.
That was the core challenge he was constantly grappling with.
Okay, and the final objective here, this was really about perception. Objective 4, to present Germany as a satiated power, seeking no further territorial expansion, and thus not threatening to its neighbors.
It was basically strategic reassurance, wasn't it? After all the upheaval of unification, he was signaling, look, we're done, we've got what we wanted, we're not a threat anymore. And that helped calm nerves across Europe, made Germany seem like a more stable, less aggressive partner.
So to achieve all this, Bismarck spun this incredible, intricate web of treaties. Let's dive into the key alliances that really formed the backbone of his system. We can go through each one, look at its purpose, and then try and connect the dots, see how they all fit together.
Absolutely. Understanding these individual threads is essential if you want to see the whole tapestry. It's like, looking inside a complex old watch. You need to see what each little gear does before you understand how the whole thing keeps time.
Right. First up, the League of the Three Emperors, or the Dreikaiserbund in German. Initially formed in 1873, then it was renewed later, 1881 to 87. The source describes its members and purpose like this. Members: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia. Purpose: to maintain the conservative order in Europe, suppress revolutionary movements, and neutralize French ambitions.
So this was basically like a gentleman's agreement between the emperors of these three quite conservative empires. When they talk about conservative order, they mean preserving the monarchies, the existing social structures, They were all a bit worried about liberalism, nationalism, revolutionary ideas spreading.
Okay.
So it aimed to keep things stable inside their empires, but also, crucially, keep France contained externally. But, and this is a big but, it had this massive built-in problem, didn't it?
It certainly did.
Yep.
The source points right to it. Challenges. Rivalry between Austria-Hungary and Russia over the Balkans led to the eventual collapse of the League, despite its renewal in 1881 and 1884.
Exactly. The Balkans. Imagine trying to mediate between two very strong-willed siblings who both desperately want the same prime piece of real estate that was kind of like Austria-Hungary and Russia eyeing the Balkans.
A recipe for disaster.
Bismarck was constantly trying to manage their competing interests, drawing these informal lines, spheres of influence, the source calls them, basically saying, okay, Austria-Hungary gets more sway in the West, Balkans, Russia in the East, but it was a relentless juggling act.
Okay, so that one was shaky. Next, we have the Dual Alliance, formed in 1879. The source says, members: Germany, Austria-Hungary. Purpose: a defensive military alliance promising mutual aid if attacked by Russia and neutrality if attacked by any other power. And its significance: cemented Germany's relationship with Austria-Hungary and was the foundation of Bismarck's alliance system.
This one was the bedrock, really the core partnership for Bismarck. It essentially said, okay, forget the shaky three-way thing for a moment. We definitely have each other's backs if Russia attacks, solidifying that Central European bloc.
But there was a downside.
Oh, yeah, a big one. The source notes the drawback. Risked alienating Russia, which could push it toward France. And that was the absolute last thing Bismarck wanted, pushing Russia into the arms of his main adversary. A huge gamble.
Okay, which leads us neatly to the Triple Alliance, set up in 1882. The source describes it. Members: Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy. Purpose: Italy joined the Dual Alliance, further isolating France and strengthening the bloc against potential threats. Function: promise mutual support if any member was attacked by two or more powers.
Getting Italy on board was, well, a real bonus for Bismarck. It added another layer of security, another wall boxing France in diplomatically. It was like adding another strong player to your defensive line, just made the whole block look much tougher.
Makes sense. And finally, this one always strikes me as pure Bismarckian maneuvering. The Reinsurance Treaty of 1887.
Ah, yes, the secret one.
Exactly. The source gives the details. Members: Germany, Russia. Purpose: secret agreement to ensure neutrality if either was attacked by a third power, but with crucial exceptions. Unless Germany attacked France or Russia attacked Austria-Hungary.
This was Bismarck's absolutely ingenious, if slightly contradictory solution to the problem he created with the Dual Alliance, the risk of alienating Russia. He realized the ultimate danger wasn't just having an enemy, it was having two coordinated enemies.
Right, the two-front war nightmare again.
Precisely.
Right.
So the Reinsurance Treaty was the secret handshake with Russia, basically saying, look, despite my deal with Austria-Hungary, let's agree not to attack each other unless one of us starts a war with the other's main rival. It was incredibly complex.
Wow.
The source notes its importance sought to prevent a Franco-Russian alliance and maintain peace with Russia after the collapse of the Three Emperors League. He was desperately trying to keep that connection to Russia alive, even secretly.
It really highlights his diplomatic juggling act.
Mm-hmm.
But as history shows, this delicate balance didn't hold forever. What was the flaw?
Well, the biggest limitation, as the source points out, was this. The treaty was not renewed after Bismarck's dismissal, leading to a Franco-Russian rapprochement. Rapprochement just means, they started getting friendly again.
And that was bad news for Germany.
Terrible news, because it undid Bismarck's single biggest achievement, keeping France and Russia apart. Once that treaty lapsed, the path was open for them to ally, which they did. A crucial turning point.
And it wasn't just these big alliances, right? He had smaller ones, too.
Yeah, exactly. The sources mention things like treaties with Romania, 1883, Serbia, 1881, and Spain. These basically extended the network like little tripwires, adding more layers to isolate France and secure Germany's flanks, an even tighter diplomatic net.
It's just staggering how he managed all this. Which brings us to how. How did one person keep so many plates spinning, often with rival nations? The sources talk about Bismarck acting as an honest broker. What did that actually look like in practice?
Well, he wasn't just building his own alliances. He was constantly positioning himself as the indispensable mediator between other powers, like the ultimate referee in a really high-stakes game, always ready to blow the whistle and de-escalate.
Can you give an example?
The classic example is the Congress of Berlin in 1878. Tensions between Austria-Hungary and Russia over the Balkans were boiling over after a Russo-Turkish war. Bismarck hosted the Congress, and, as the source says, he helped resolve the disputes, effectively preventing war between Austria-Hungary and Russia.
So he wasn't seen as just pushing Germany's agenda.
Not overtly, no. His stated aim was always European stability. He understood that Germany's real power at that point wasn't just its army, it was being the one country everyone had to talk to, the one leader who could seemingly pull rabbits out of diplomatic hats. That made Germany central indispensable.
Okay, so what were the core principles behind this success? The methods he used?
His approach was very deliberate. The first principle, straight from the source, was balance of power. Bismarck's system was based on the classic principle of balancing the major powers so that no coalition could threaten Germany.
Like keeping a scale perfectly balanced.
Exactly. He was always watching, calculating, making sure no single side or alliance got strong enough to tip the scales and threaten Germany's security, constantly shifting the weights, metaphorically speaking.
Okay, and the second principle. Source notes. Secret diplomacy. Many treaties were secret, giving Bismarck flexibility and leverage.
Ah, the secrecy. This gave him that element of surprise, didn't it? Kept rivals guessing, unsure of the exact commitments Germany had made. That uncertainty was a powerful tool, letting him pull diplomatic strings others didn't even know were there.
Very Machiavellian in a way.
Perhaps. The third principle really highlights the workload. Constant maintenance. The system required ongoing diplomatic effort and personal management by Bismarck. The treaties were often short-term and needed frequent renewal.
So it wasn't like he set it up and walked away.
Not at all. You have to picture it like tending this incredibly complex, delicate garden. It needed constant watering, pruning, weeding, endless attention to stop it from collapsing or growing in ways he didn't want. He was reportedly always negotiating, reassuring, often traveling himself.
Wow. And the fourth principle, a very conscious decision. No colonial overreach. Bismarck avoided colonial expansion that could antagonize Britain or distract from European priorities.
Yeah, this showed incredible focus. While other European powers were scrambling for colonies in Africa and Asia, Bismarck largely kept Germany out of it, at least initially.
Yeah.
He knew it could easily annoy Britain, whose naval power he respected, and more importantly, it would distract Germany from the main game, maintaining stability and security in Europe. He prioritized the continent over a global empire. Strategic discipline, really.
Okay, so after all that incredible painstaking work, what were the big payoffs? What did Bismarck's grand design actually achieve? The sources seem pretty clear on the successes.
Oh, absolutely. In terms of its immediate goals, the system was remarkably successful. First, the big one. Peace in Europe. Bismarck's alliance system kept Europe largely at peace for 2 decades after 1871, despite several crises and disputes. That's a huge achievement for that era.
20 years of major peace is significant.
Definitely. Second, he achieved that key goal. Isolation of France. France was unable to find major allies, reducing the risk of a war of revenge. Mission accomplished on that front, for a time.
And third,
German security. Germany was always part of a strong bloc, deterring potential aggressors. He built this diplomatic fortress around the new German state, making it feel secure.
but, as we've hinted, no system is perfect. What were the cracks in this impressive structure? The sources also point out some inherent weaknesses.
Exactly. And often the system's strengths were also its weaknesses. The first major one was its fragility. The system was highly dependent on Bismarck's personal diplomacy and the maintenance of a delicate balance between Austria-Hungary and Russia.
So it really was almost entirely reliant on him personally, like a one-man show.
Pretty much. Which leads directly to the second weakness, short-termism. Many treaties were temporary and required constant renegotiation. This wasn't a structure built to last indefinitely without his specific skills and constant attention. It was a living, breathing thing that needed his hand on the tiller.
And then, of course, came the moment that hand was removed. Bismarck was dismissed by the young Kaiser Wilhelm II. What happened after Bismarck?
This is really the crux of the legacy, isn't it? The turning point. The sources state it very clearly. His successors failed to maintain the system's balance. Crucially, the non-renewal of the reinsurance treaty led to a Franco-Russian alliance.
The thing he worked so hard to prevent.
Exactly. Undermining Bismarck's key goal and contributing to the polarization that preceded World War I. It raises that critical question. What happens when the master architect of something incredibly complex and delicate leaves, and the people who take over don't fully grasp or maybe don't value how all the intricate pieces fit together?
It risks falling apart.
Sometimes catastrophically.
So in a tragic irony, the very system designed to keep peace for decades also, inadvertently, helped set the stage for the biggest conflict Europe had ever seen.
That's the paradox, isn't it, as the analysis suggests. The alliances Bismarck created formed the basis for the rival blocs that faced off in 1914. So his system was simultaneously both a stabilizing force and a precursor to later conflict. A true double-edged sword of diplomacy.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway? Bismarck's alliance system was, an undeniable testament to one man's diplomatic genius. It successfully secured Germany, maintained an unusual period of peace in Europe for decades.
It really shows us just how complex international relations can be, how peace often isn't just the absence of war, but this incredibly intricate, actively managed balance of power. It requires constant effort, constant vigilance.
But, and it's a big but, it also starkly highlights the fragility of systems like that, especially when the unique personal touch, the foresight, the sheer diplomatic skill of their creator is gone.
It's a powerful reminder that even the most carefully constructed stability can be, well, surprisingly temporary.
So here's something to think about. In our world today, which is arguably even more interconnected, more complex, are there modern, honest brokers? Are there figures or maybe institutions working behind the scenes, managing tensions, preventing major conflicts in ways we don't always see?
And maybe more importantly, what happens if their influence fades? Or if they're removed from the equation? What intricate diplomatic webs might be quietly holding things together right now? And how much do they depend on specific individuals or maybe even specific, unrepeatable global circumstances?
A sobering thought to mull over.